On this week's podcast, Timmy and I engage in the proverbial discussion of the chicken or the egg as it relates to institutions. Have people lost faith in institutions, or have institutions changed so much that people lost faith?
Bold, blind, and Buddhist.
Timmy C., my good friend, how the hell are you, pal?
I'm good. I heard is that your Coke Zero? Is that what you have?
That's my Coke Zero. I still think of Andy, the doctor that we talked to last week, and I sent her that article. Did you read it, by the way? The Wall Street Journal about Coke Zero versus Diet Coke?
Yeah, I looked at it.
Yeah, it's hysterical. And the fastest growing market now is Coke Zero, and it's gotten to the point, and I'm one of these people, given the choice between drinking Diet Coke versus Pepsi Zero, I'll choose the latter as opposed to the former. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to me because it's not something that I think like the Yankees and the Red Sox. There's no gray area, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So yeah, that is my signature Coke Zero being poured as we speak. So.
I've got some ginger ale. That's
it. You know, that's an underrated beverage as I see it. Yeah, it's very refreshing. The only problem that I always have with it is I always associate it with being sick. Because when we were kids, my mom used to give us flat ginger ale to sort of settle your stomach and such.
I always associate it with Jameson whiskey.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. My brother used to drink Jack and Gingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, for sure. So I just finished watching the British Open. Ryan Fox, a Kiwi from New Zealand, won. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago who's Ryan Fox, I probably would have guessed, my neighbor or something. I never heard of him. His best finish ever was 16th in a major, and he just won. He made a birdie on the 18th hole and won by one stroke. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I always like when there's guys that have won one major tournament, and it always seems that they do it at the British for some reason. I think because it's such a unique style of golf, playing links style golf. But I always because for the rest of their life, nobody can take this away. You've won a major championship.
Yeah.
It might be one, but hell, it's going to be one more than 99.9% of people have ever won. Right?
So what is link style golf?
So it's the classical golf started in Great Britain. In fact, I believe initially it was 12 holes, 6 and 6, and then they added a third 6. So it's basically no trees. They have these pot bunkers, which are these deep sort of almost as if you drill a hole in just a big round hole in the ground. It's not like it's just below the surface. It's 3, 4, 5 feet of wall, and it's pretty much predicated upon, like, I'm sure there's an official definition. I'll look it up and maybe we can post it in the show notes. What is officially links golf? But my understanding is, there's no trees. It's all about putting. Like, you're never going to get the ball close because it has so many hills and undulating hills and so forth. And really what separates it is the rough is ridiculous. It can be as high as 5, 6, 7 feet. In fact, Bryson DeChambeau, who is not one of my favorite people, got a 2-stroke penalty. If you watch the video, he clearly violated the rules. Even the players said it. And to his credit, Rory McIlroy said, "I'm not going to stand up here and defend. I'm not particularly fond of the guy." And he said, I think a lot of his antics are performative and done for attention. But he stomped down the ground to improve his backswing. And they gave him a 2-stroke penalty.
Yeah.
And it's just my understanding of it is kind of the pot bunkers. It's all about rolling hills. It's no trees. It's wind. It's really dependent on the wind. The thing with the British too is it's always as dry as a bone. So like you can't get the ball. These guys are so good. They can get the ball to stick within 2-3 feet of the pin in most major courses in the United States. You can't get it sometimes within 10 feet. It just, you hit and it roll right back. It's like putting on a sheet of glass, if you will, or a parking lot almost. So, but that's actually an interesting question. What actually makes it link? I don't know how to define it, but that's how I understand it at least. But I'll look it up as we talk. So, anyway, what's new with you, pal? How's Wisconsin?
It's good. Wildfire smoke has been going on. It's hitting us.
Has it been bad there? Yeah, you're near Canada.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad.
All right, so here's some of the, unlike manicured inland courses, true links courses are defined by 8 strict elements: natural terrain, built on sandy soil; coastal climate, tend to be located along the ocean and completely exposed to harsh winds; treeless landscape; deep hazards, meaning features small, steep sand traps known as pot bunkers. Because the ground is so hard and the winds are so strong, links requires a completely different style of golf. Rather than hitting high shots that rely on backspin, golfers use the ground game, utilizing low trajectory shots, bump and runs, and natural slopes to bounce the ball towards the hole. It's an interesting style of golf. It's fun.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, it's golf at the end of the day. It's, variations, but It's interesting to me. But that reminds me, by the way, are you going to be watching the World Cup at 3?
We're going to catch it. Yeah.
Yep. You have a dog in the fight, or do you care? It's Spain against Argentina.
Argentina. I kind of want to see Messi. He seems like a good guy. Get another one.
Yeah, and this young fellow on the other team, I'm going to botch his name, Yamal, I believe is his last name, with Spain is supposed to be the next Messi. Lamine Yamal, I think is what his name is. And actually, there happened to be a picture of the two of them. He was holding Lamine Yamal as a baby. I don't know how that happened, but 15, 18 years ago. I don't care either way. I suppose at the end of the day, if you put a gun to my head, Spain would be my choice because Argentina won it 4 years ago. And unless it's Notre Dame, I don't want a team to win back to back, So, am I going to lose sleep if Argentina win? No. So, but that also reminds me of our trivia question from last week before we get into this week's podcast. The question was whether or not Great Britain, because the 4 teams that were left in the semifinals had all won the World Cup before. England, Argentina, France, and of course Spain. They've all won it. The longest wait for any of those teams is, of course, Great Britain. The answer is yes, obviously. They've won the World Cup. They won it once. The World Cup turns 100 in next tournament. So it started in 1930. And they won it when they were hosting it in 1966. That was the last time they won it. And after they lost in such a heartbreaking fashion to France, I was telling my dad, because as you know, Timmy, I lived over there. The British were just self-flagellating themselves. We're not going to win. We're not supposed to win. God hates us. Why, blah, blah. Just going through all the motions. And I love the British. So they would probably do it with a touch of humor and sarcastic wit. So it would be even better,
Right.
Yeah. So that's the question. And you had a trivia question for this week before I wanted to tell people about our podcast and what we are discussing this week.
Sure. So I don't think I've done this one before, but the Indianapolis 500 is a major U.S. motorsports event where you drive 500 miles, Indianapolis, blah, blah, blah. When the winner finishes, has it become a tradition for them to drink?
I actually know that.
Yep.
People get this wrong.
Next week.
Yeah. People get this wrong. I know that answer. Good call. Why don't you tell people what we were discussing? We might do a little, spend a couple bucks and do some marketing for our podcast, right, Timmy? Help it grow?
Yeah, we're doing some marketing. We're on there on YouTube. We will eventually be on social media, people. Check that out.
2 guys who hate social media.
Yeah.
And we told the woman. Yeah, I mean, we were pretty candid that we don't want social media for our kids, but I reckon it's sort of like the DMV. You have to deal with it, right?
It seems like it. That's the bill of goods they're giving us. So
I know people like my buddy who recommended this woman. She comes highly recommended. Yeah. He owns an HVAC company.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about something that, it seems like you don't necessarily need advertising. You call them when the proverbial what hits the fan.
Yeah.
You just, get your air conditioning fixed. But he said it's been seen remarkable turnaround. So
we're working on growing, and it's all for you guys. So if you guys, share, if you like it, if you don't like it, send it to somebody you don't like. If you like it, send it to somebody you like. We don't care. We don't care really.
Yeah.
That's
At
our
the
story.
end of the day, we're trying to grow our listenership from 12 to 13.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to go from double digits to triple digits.
Yep. That's our plan.
So anyway, Timmy, you were the one who proposed this topic, and I'm going to come at it from a different angle. But why don't you sort of set the stage for what we're going to be talking about today?
So there's this thought experiment called the Ship of Thesus. Are you familiar with this, John?
I am not.
So the idea is the Ship of Theseus was sort of taken out every year to celebrate a traditional passage by water. But it's a wooden ship, and it was replaced plank by plank. And then eventually does it reach a point where the ship is no longer what it was when it started? And it's sort of a thought experiment. What is identity, right? What does it mean? And I think there are some prominent organizations which I think have replaced enough planks that they no longer are what we thought they were when they were founded and what they were supposed to be. And so there's some examples of the news. And I think I'm talking about organizations which have broken faith with us. And I think you are going to talk about people breaking faith with organizations, maybe?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is that Reagan line, using your hero. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
Yeah.
There's an element of truth to that. And I think that there was an element of truth that Reagan tapped into, sort of those Reagan Democrats, as it were, the people that still believed in 80% of what the Democratic Party, but they felt that they had gone off the rails. But you were particularly jazzed up by 2 organizations that you called out, right? The Southern Poverty Law Center and Amnesty International. Isn't that what
Yeah.
got your feathers in a ruffle?
Well, there's the ACLU, but we could save that for a separate podcast.
No, I want to hear about give me at least the Cliff Notes version of all three.
Okay. So in this past week, Amnesty International UK, which is where it was founded, let's just back up. So their charter statement, the article that launched them says, quote, that they exist for people who are imprisoned, tortured, or executed because his opinions or religion are unacceptable to his government.
They're basically trying to deal with political repression,
Prisoners.
right? Yeah. I mean, in a nutshell, people that, human rights were being violated and things of that nature as they saw it, and they felt that it was important as an organization. And most of these organizations, I think PETA started in Great Britain as well, right? People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, I believe so. Yeah.
So fast forward 65 years, John, and they put out their list of anti-rights groups in the UK, which include things like a rape crisis center that's just for biological women. Certain
I think they've lost the music for the Cliff Notes. Yeah. I see where you're going with this. Okay.
Certain gay rights groups and groups that protect the rights of biological women, and they called them anti-rights groups. So they're called out by Amnesty International, who was there for the person who believed differently, who was supposed to be there for the person who was being persecuted, and now they're persecuting. And this only became super common knowledge because J.K. Rowling funded the Barras Place Rape Crisis Center, and she's offered to cover the legal costs for anybody who wants to challenge.
So, in a nutshell, what you're telling me is this organization, Amnesty International, which was set up for political prisoners and people that were oppressed from speech and religious identity and so forth, have veered so far that if you suggest that sex is biological and there's only two, right? Mm-hmm. That they are now condemning them. Is that my understanding?
Yeah. They're saying they're anti-rights, whatever that means.
I don't know why people get all jazzed up about this. That's something that I just don't understand. To me, it's a very simple truth. I think that sex, in and of itself, political or biological identity, is a binary choice. I think, however, people can be shades of gray along that binary. Does that make sense to you, Timmy? Meaning, I think that there are people who are masculine but effeminate masculine, or men, born men that happen to be effeminate, women that are, I think it's a continuum, and I think people are conflating the two, which is who and what you're attracted to in life. People are attracted to people. I don't care if it's a man, a woman, whatever it may be. But to me, your sexual identity, you come out with one or the other. Yeah. From birth, right? I mean, to me, it seems that unless you're a hermaphrodite, you have both, right?
Right.
So,
well, I think, in confined spaces, right, such as a rape crisis center or a playing field of sport, you can't satisfy both the gender ideologues and the biological people, right?
Right.
It's just trade-offs. No, you can't meet both people's rights. And I say when that is the case, then I think the logical thing to do until, it's changed in people's opinion or the law, you should respect the rights of women. Like a woman who has been through a sexual assault, it's okay for her to just want to be around women in the place she stays.
Let me ask you a question along these lines. And I agree with you that maybe, I think sometimes organizations that are in it to make a profit. So my mom was telling me recently that she was upset with Target because I guess they were selling a particular line of clothing. I don't know how relevant or prevalent this was. I don't know if it was like a section of the store or if it just happened to be 3 items that were being sold that were for folks that are transgender.
This was Pride Month a year or two ago, and that helped you kind of hide your parts.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, exactly. I'm okay with that, but they got so much pushback from, I guess, these Christians that they basically pulled the line of clothing. And to me, that's a foundational business decision. That's not them taking a stand on gay or transgender rights. I can understand the disappointment that someone who is transgender would feel. But again, not playing rap in Nashville, Tennessee is not censorship. It seems to me that country music is what sells there, and not playing rap is a business decision.
Right.
And sometimes business decisions sort of buttress up against social issues. And I think people have too frequently conflated the two. Meaning Amnesty International needs to stay in their lane dealing with, there's so much political oppression going on in places like China that it seems to me you should focus on that and not per se a rape crisis center because of, biology. Am I wrong, Tim?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Now, what was the other one? Tell me about the ACLU and tell me about the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Let's do the Southern Poverty Law Center first.
And give the history of the Southern Poverty Law Center, because they were kind of the Amnesty International for hate groups domestically here in the United States. They would go after folks, that's a group of attorneys and volunteers and so forth, that would basically try and, keep an eye on skinheads
white supremacy
and Nazis and white supremacists.
And KKK and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me it's sort of like, how could you not be for this?
Well,
if you're so.
Yeah. Well, here's the nice part, John. We don't seem to have as many skinheads and KKK folks around in the U.S. as we used to. There still are. Okay.
Have you heard this, by the way? That not every Trump voter is a racist, but every racist is a Trump voter. I happen to agree with that, by the way. What do you think of that?
I actually disagree, but
it's just something I'm being partially facetious, but it is a line that jumps out at me. So go ahead.
So in lieu of having real dragons to slay, they've come up with labelings. You ready for some of their hate groups?
Yeah.
Turning Point USA, Moms for Liberty, Libs of TikTok, Gays Against Groomers, Focus on the Family, PragerU, Alliance Defending Freedom, and so many other groups as hateful.
Again, this is, I think the lines are becoming too blurred for people. I think sometimes you need to stay in your lane and it makes it easy. I mean, you don't have to necessarily paint in pastels. Black and white is fine. If you're a hate group or a neo-Nazi group, I think everyone generally who's not in that group would agree with you, right? I respect their ability to speak. Hate groups have every right to speak as long as it doesn't, result in violence or running into the classic running into a movie theater and yelling fire. But it seems to me that these are differences of attenuation or stress. That Moms for Liberty, you may not agree with their message. That doesn't necessarily make them a hate group, does it?
Focus on the family, for goodness sakes.
Well, some of that may not be the best example for you to use because some of their behavior has crossed the line as I see it, but go ahead.
Are they a hate group, though? Like, should they be in this? I don't think they should be in the same category as the KKK. But
No.
check this out, John.
Yeah.
In the past, I think it's about maybe 4 or 5 years, the SPLC has taken donor money and then paid people who were associated with these groups. They sort of had paid insiders. So they're taking your money. If you think you're giving it to lawyers to defend people, you're actually getting $3 million have apparently been funneled to members of these hate groups who organized and facilitated their efforts. So
it's like you've said, though, Timmy, going back to something you were very sagacious and wise about. Follow the money with some of this research around COVID and why certain things happen the way. I was disappointed to find out how much money Anthony Fauci was taking and other people were taking and so forth. I mean, follow the money. The Southern Poverty Law Center is taking a $3 million donation. They're probably going to have some orders to follow, right?
No, but they're taking the donation to feed the things they're fighting. So they're taking this money from you and me, and then they're giving it to Nazis, literally Nazis. John.
Speaking of which, did you see the Babylon Bee about Graham Plantner, who finally, thank the good Lord, dropped out of the Maine Senate race? Yeah. And it said rape accusations really mar the reputation of local Nazi. So to that point, Brett Stevens, the columnist for the New York Times, who will be joining us on the podcast in the coming weeks, he was on Real Time with Bill Maher recently. And he said one of the things that Democrats have to understand is you have to drop the word Hitler and Nazi from your vocabulary, particularly when you're trying to criticize Trump. Mm-hmm. Two things can be true at the same time. You can say he's a horrible president. I don't agree with this. I think his behavior is dangerous. And not equate him to Hitler. Mm-hmm. You can do that very successfully. Yeah. And the problem is oftentimes by becoming so hyperbolic with your language, people sort of tune it out. It's kind of like the proverbial boy who cries wolf, right? If everybody's Hitler, then what is Hitler anymore? Right?
Well, if everybody's a hate group, then what's a hate group?
That's exactly my point.
Right?
Yeah, with the Southern Poverty Law Center. If you veer too far off of your lane, you've lost the purpose of your travel. Right? I mean, isn't that what you're essentially saying? Which is Amnesty International. Stay focused on what really matters.
Yeah, I think there are some political prisoners still out there.
Yeah, there's quite a number of them. Yeah. And the Southern Poverty Law Center, There's still neo-Nazis. There's still the Proud Boys. There's people that you can focus on that don't necessarily have differences in ideology. And again, I don't think that someone who has a different opinion about transgender rights, gay marriage, blah, 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 whatever it may be that you feel passionately about is by definition a hate group. Right. And that's where I think people have lost their way. Where I become frustrated, let me just give a couple examples in the news this week. Is that all right?
Yeah.
I went at this from a different angle, and I'm wondering the question, the foundational question for me of this is, why have people lost their faith in classic institutions? And I think part of it is a testament to success. And what I mean by that is evolution and the advancement of technology. And just think of the things, I used to say this to my students. Think of your grandmother. She was probably born in the 1920s, right? Mm-hmm. Think of the amount of things that have happened since her birth, from the invention of antibiotics, birth control pills, the jumbo jet airliner, the internet, all these things that just, I can now be on a plane and quite literally within a day be in China. I mean, that's just 100 years ago, that was not possible, right? Mm-hmm. Just think of how much has advanced. 2 world wars, all the major world events. It's as though you took, hundreds of years and jammed it into 1 century. Mm-hmm. It's been incredible. It's a testament to human ingenuity. To that end, I think the advancement of technology, information, the availability of information, they call this the atomization of information, the spreading out and so forth, has enabled people to work from home like I do. Right? You can probably do virtual sessions with some of your patients if it's required. Can you not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's available to you if you choose to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a testament, right? But the flip side of that, though, is classic institutions that we used to depend upon for guidance, I think, have sort of lost their footing as well as a consequence. And I'll just give you 3 examples and then a fourth that's kind of relevant just because of the World Cup's this week. Mm-hmm. The first one is academia. Right? Mm-hmm. I sent you this article. There was a study convened, I think, by Vanderbilt University talking about the influence of politics in academia. And basically, there's an old saying that it's better to have somebody assume you're an idiot than open your mouth and remove all doubt. Mm-hmm. Right? So there is this article, and we'll link in the show notes, from a study done on anthropology and anthropology departments, whereby politics has begun to influence it. And to your point, Timmy, gender identity is one of these things. They won't even discuss the idea that biology is predetermined, that there's only 2 genders, right? Male and female. Okay. And again, I'm liberal. The problem, it's like Bill Maher said, again, I voted for the same woman that you did, meaning Kamala Harris, but you're the reason she lost, not me, because of this craziness, right?
Right.
And academia is one of these examples. And she goes to this author in the Washington Post, goes through this successful delineation of academia. 100 years ago or 50 years ago, it was considered the bridge to a better life and to upper class living and so forth and so on. And they've lost their bearings because I always say it's good work if you can get it. Academia has a guaranteed revenue stream, meaning people that think that the college degree is the end all be all. And it isn't. And this is coming from someone who has an advanced degree. You have multiple degrees, right? I think you agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, people in the trades, like the guy who came and fixed my toilet the other day, he's like, oh, I'm leaving early. I'm going down to my beach house. And I was like, I'm doing something wrong. So, but academia, it's lost its bearings. I mean, there is no... Academia should be about, in its simplest delineation, the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? At least to me. Teach the classics,
or at least a search for truth.
Yeah, I don't think that academia necessarily needs to insert itself in all of these. And this article talks about this woman who is the head of the Anthropological Institute or the association across the country. She teaches at Princeton. And basically what this author says is, it's clear this woman has never talked to anybody outside of academia or has not done so in a long time. Because it's like an insular bubble, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they speak to their colleagues. I always say that women dress nicely to impress other women. Men don't know what a nice dress looks like. At least I don't. I mean, I can tell you look pretty in it, but you look pretty in jeans to me, right?
Yeah.
But academia is one of these. People have lost their faith in academia. I think rightfully so. How about the church? There was a splinter sect of traditionalist Catholics. And again, this far be it from me to defend the Catholics. Okay. But that being said, the church has lost its bearings. I mean, the sex scandal, I think, sort of was the cherry on top for a lot of people, because when Boston finally happened in 2000, I mean, I have friends of mine that are priests. In fact, Charlie, my oldest, his godfather is a priest. This was the worst kept secret. They've known about the pedophilia and the problems of sex in the church for 50 years. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of made the choice financially to keep it quiet. And then by exposing that, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I think the church, to their credit, they don't change. I mean, they still don't want gay people to get married. They still don't think you should take birth control. I don't agree with those things. But again, I think they've lost their bearings, because where you're supposed to seek spirituality and truth and hope and all these sorts of things, they're engaging in, this horrible acts with children. It's wrong.
Do you know what the story behind this sect is? Do you know what this is about?
No, but this is this breakaway sect that split off. It's just further example, I think, of the erosion of institutions. Well, academia has lost it. The church has lost it. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. So you've said academia's lost it. This splinter group is in favor of things like the Latin Mass. So they actually think the church has gone too far, and they're trying to hold the line. So it's actually...
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did something. They were bestowing bishops or something.
Yeah. They kind of said, "Hey, let's make our own bishops." And you can't quite do that without the Pope's permission. You know?
I'm okay with them being pushed out. But again, to me, and the third one I'm going to talk about, obviously, is the White House, Trump. I have a buddy of mine who is a very educated guy, went to Duke and smart and blah, blah, blah. And he was talking about how Fox is in the can for liberal America now or something. And I'm saying, you're telling me that Fox isn't batshit crazy enough? Is that that to me is what the church sometimes, it's like, oh, this isn't working, so let's double down on it. Yeah. Let's make the Mass longer. Let's go back to Latin. Let's put women back in the kitchen. Right. I just, some of these things, and that's fine if that's your business. I don't have to frequent that business, but don't ask me to look to you for moral guidance anymore, is my point. It's the same thing with academia. The value, if you had said to me when we were freshmen, Timmy, you pay to go to Harvard, or you get a free ride to X, Y, and Z state university, I would have in 1992, 93 said, yeah, it's probably worth it to go to Harvard. Mm-hmm. Are you going to say that in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, if you say the whole point of going to Harvard is networking with elite, rich people with connections, I think
that's still worth it. Right.
That still has value.
But are you going to tell me the value of the education is that much more so than state U? Or
no, absolutely not. I don't think the education is any better. I think the connections are better. But I guess, so answer me this though, John. I think organizations, things like the church, for example, have existed over time, have passed down values and things like that. And if it's all atomized, how do people orient? Are they just up to themselves to define the good, right? Like what?
So there is I see what you're saying. There is an element of consistency to the church. I mean, it's been this way for thousands of years. But let me give you one example, okay? Mm-hmm. No meat on Fridays, or no meat on Lent. Do you have any idea where that happened? It started in the Middle Ages to help fishermen.
Okay.
Because they wanted people to not eat meat to help fishermen on Fridays. That has no religious basis. Priests not being able to be married has no religious basis. It's simply an issue of finance and financial economics, which is they are the single largest landowner in the entire world. They didn't want to have the question of inheritance and all these other things being done. So they just said priests can't get married. That has no religious basis. Well, when the structure itself, to me, is flawed. It's kind of like that building in Midtown Manhattan. Did you hear about this? That literally is almost falling on itself. They had to close 6 blocks in Midtown Manhattan. It used to be the old Pfizer building that somebody's converting into condos in Midtown Manhattan. Mm-hmm. Not exactly cheap real estate. Mm-hmm. And the building literally started to buckle while the workers are in there. It turns out the beams were not there. My point being is in many ways, I think the church is comparable to that. I think the structure itself is flawed. And as a consequence, I'm not going to frequent it. But the flip side, though, is for people who do, this has to be disappointing, this behavior with the church sex abuse scandals, the splinter sects, women, and all these other things. I mean, give them credit for being around. I agree with you, Timmy, that they've been around, they've been consistent, but I'm just not going to shop there. That's
but what I'm saying is, so that we got 8 billion whatever people on the planet. How do they orient, and how do they unite, and how do they decide on a good without an institution? You say like.
I used to always say this: people unite 2 times in their life. During major sporting events like the World Cup and the Olympics, and during a time of crisis. That's it. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, watch the Olympics and some skier from Northern Oregon wins, and you're like, America, America. You don't even know where Oregon is on a map. You know what I mean? So I don't know. The other thing that I always used to tell my students is the one American phenomenon. You hear a story of a jumbo jet airliner was hijacked, and there's 287 people on board, 3 crew members, 2 stewardesses, and 1 American. Yeah. And all of a sudden they hear, one American. There's 300 other people on the plane. Who cares, right? Oh, they're Mongolian. It doesn't matter, right? Why does that happen? So I think there's an element, I think the founders recognize this, a factionalization amongst people, which we talked about last week. But yeah, I don't know how you unite. I don't. And I give the church credit for being consistent, but I think they're consistently wrong on a lot of things. So, yeah. And then the final thing, and this is the most disheartening for me, Timmy. Thomas Massey, who was a congressman from Kentucky, he got into Trump's crosshairs. And like Trump has been able to do with nearly everyone who crosses him, particularly in the Republican Party, he gets them out of office. Right? I mean, of the 10 or 11 people that voted to impeach him, I think one is still standing and has decided to retire. But I always find it amazing how people find their proverbial backbone once they decide to leave politics. Like the most interesting person to listen to right now is Bill Cassidy, who is the doctor in Louisiana who voted to impeach Trump and then tried to get in with his graces and then lost his primary and blah, blah. Thomas Massey was another one. The president gives a speech, a primetime speech, basically setting up the groundwork for the reason we lost the midterms, which most polls say the Democrats will do very well in November. But again, I remind people, it is the Democrats. They can screw up a one-car funeral. They have that ability. They're Democrats. They are likely to win significant margins in both the House and the possibility of retaking the Senate. And Thomas Massey said, and the president gets up there and talks about how there's already fraud and be prepared for it, basically saying, if and when I lose, which he's projected to do, it's not because of me, it's because of fraud. Yeah. And Thomas Massey says, which I really respect him for. He says, Republicans have all the powers of government right now. We control the House, the Senate, the White House, and if you consider political beings in the Supreme Court, we control the Supreme Court. How is it possible that there's fraud if we're in control, right? The fact that the president of the United States, I can't say this enough, and I have a buddy of mine who said this to me the other day, January 6th was an FBI setup. And I looked at him, I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, you haven't seen the clips? And I was like, oh my God, like, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? When you see fraud everywhere and the possibility of it, there's no answer. So when the president of the United States gets up there and just acts like a dictator, which he's bordering on becoming, he's not Hitler, but he's bordering on becoming one, it really scares me. And you want to talk about faith in politics and institutions? I've lost all faith. You know that, Timmy. I don't talk about it. I haven't talked about it in nearly 2 years, but it's impossible not to because he's so peripatetic. He's everywhere. And he's already setting up the groundwork to claim fraud in an American election. It's insane to me. And it's so wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. That one totally. I mean, we had Ramesh on, and he was explaining. Oh,
yeah, Ramesh Ponnuru. Yeah.
Yeah, that this is just part of Trump's narrative, to communicate with a certain group of people. And I don't know if that's true, but otherwise it doesn't make much rational sense to me.
Yeah, and he said the other day, Ramesh said this, and I respect him for it. He said, look, what Trump essentially did by claiming the 2020 election was stolen was he made sure that his voters never forgot. He said, I think it was ethically and morally bankrupt, and it was politically astute. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem that I have, which is what is good in politics is not necessarily ethical or decent.
Right.
That's what it's become to me, really, at the end of the day.
And I think he's broken faith, right? I think with what we would say America should stand for, just like some of the, the organizations that we've talked about today.
They did a study, a 25 or 24 year study from 2000 to 2020 or 2024, and they looked at every election, and there was something in excess of like 500 million votes. I forget the exact numbers, and I'm quoting out of turn here, but they found 41 instances or something out of 500 million votes of voter fraud.
Right.
Half of which were people voting twice because they had a mail-in ballot or something. So it's like the statistical, I mean, I understand that's 41 instances more than it should be, but when you're talking about a billion, it was over a billion actually votes. I remember when they added it up over a billion. That's not even a rounding error. That's like, standard deviation in math.
Yeah.
So to me, those are the three examples that are just in the news this week that really have shown to me how much people have lost faith in institutions, academia, the Catholic Church, and in politics, the White House. I mean, when the president of the United States gets up there and says that this election is stolen and it hasn't even happened yet, what does that say to other people? Right. I cannot wait to see him out of office. I cannot wait. But I got 2 more years. So.
Yep. And when rape crisis centers and libs of TikTok are singled out.
What is libs of TikTok, by the way? I guess we're going to find all this stuff out when we start doing social media, right, Timmy?
Yeah, well, libs of TikTok, I've followed them a little bit. They tend to sort of repost some of the liberal memes that exist on TikTok so that people know what's out there. So they're really just sort of using the zeitgeist, the liberal stuff that's out there as fodder for mockery in a sense, and people don't like that.
I know, but it's one of these things like.
Well, then
you
don't
said
say it. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
don't say
it's
it.
Kind of, it's kind of out there in the provenance,
Yeah.
That's not what I said, sir. It's right here
Yeah,
on
it
tape.
is exactly what you said. And now,
But I mean, Trump
know.
does it all the time, doesn't he? I didn't say that. Here's
Yeah.
the tape. No, that's not me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I just, to me, people's faith in institutions, the thing that I am reminded of, however, is another thing that Bill Maher said, which is, as bad as it is, if you're a liberal right now, and Andy, the woman that was on last week with us, she said, it's got to be tough to be a liberal right now. And I said, it to me, it's like ethics. They only matter when it's inconvenient. I'm a classic liberal. I believe in free speech, women's rights, all these other things. I'm not one of these crazy woke people, right? Like, I understand why Target made the decision to remove a transgender clothing line. It was a business decision. I think that's the right business decision. If I had a child who was transgender, would I be disappointed in Target? Yes. But would I stop shopping there? Probably not.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's just, it seems to me everything doesn't have to be the end-all be-all of Western civilization. And that's what everything has become.
Well, the other thing is, I think it's possible to, we downplay tolerance now. It's possible to tolerate things without being an advocate for them.
The other one that you always say, which I love, is it's okay to not have an opinion.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I'm going to do more research on that. You don't instantaneously have to have the opinion, right?
But you can be like, you be you, but I'm not going to go shout from the rooftops that how you are is how I want people to be. Like there's this difference between, accepting something and being a full force advocate. And I think these groups like Amnesty International, if you're not proclaiming the dogma, then they consider you anti, and you're just maybe neutral.
Well, that was the thing that in this article, which we'll link in the show notes about academia, that there's a dogma, and even questions that are asked about biological sex are suppressed, and you're a hate monger because you say that. If I ask a question about biological sex, I might just be inquiring.
Yeah.
I'm not anti. I'm liberal, and you're losing me.
Have you seen Ketanji Brown's answer?
No.
I'm not a doctor. Well, I'm not a biologist, or I'm not a doctor. I'll try to find that. We can put that in the show
My whack
notes.
job of the week this week is going to be Sam Alito, which we'll do in a second here. But I do think that there is an element of duplicity sometimes with some of these things, which is the Supreme Court brings in experts, and when it fits the conservative opinion, they buy it. When it doesn't, they don't. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I do think that if I don't understand, like, for instance, I'll be the first person to tell you, I am completely libertarian when it comes to living. I think prostitution should be legal. I think drugs should be legal. I think you should live your life however you so choose, as long as it doesn't negatively impact other people. 2 words matter to me: consent and adults. So you can't marry your dog because your dog can't give consent. But if you want to have an adult relationship with multiple women or what, fine, you're an adult. It's not for me. I don't understand transgender. I'm all about equality for people, though. And if a doctor tells me, if you, for instance, and you were the one who told me, there's probably 5 or 6 edge cases in a state of Wisconsin a year, right? Of teenagers who might need hormone blockers. It's not 100. So for those 6 cases, I'm cool to listen to arguments.
Right.
I don't understand. So if Ketanji Brown was saying that I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't exactly ring true when they're espousing on everything else, right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, I do have hope, though, Timmy. I will tell you that I think that even though classic institutions, and again, part of the thing that I remind myself is that aside from academia, I think the church has always sort of been sort of scandalous. I think politics has always sort of been an unsavory, dirty business, as it were. If you want Harry Truman's favorite line, if you want a friend in Washington, get yourself a dog. I suppose now it's just becoming more pronounced because the information's available.
Right.
Is that a fair statement?
I think that's part of it. And I think there used to be gentlemen's agreements to keep things out.
I mean, Ken, he laid anything that didn't move and some things that did, like, I mean, I just watched a PBS documentary on him, and it was just understood the Secret Service would help him with his affairs and get rid of this and blah, blah. I'm not so sure that's the better answer. And to me, there is an element of Trump is sort of, at least he's honest. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like my brother has always said, all politicians are scumbags. Maybe I'm being naive, but I don't think they're as bad as Trump. Yeah. But he is being honest. I'm going to rob this place blind. I'm going to loot the place.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, Well, Timmy, let me give you my whack job. Speaking of institutions that I think have lost their way, and here's the reason why. And I have to read this, okay, just so everybody has the actual quote. So my whack job is, of course, Sam Alito, and alongside that goes Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, however, I don't know the man personally. I know people who know him, and he is an angry man for some reason. I don't know why. That's just what I've heard. That being said, I don't think he's terribly. I think, unfortunately, for better or for worse, Thurgood Marshall, the only African American on the Supreme Court, retires. Republicans have a chance to appoint the seat in 1991. He's a black jurist who happens to be somewhat conservative. Let's put him on there, even though, I think there was some validity to some of these sexual harassment claims. That's neither here nor there. What I'm getting at is I'm not so sure he got his job on merit. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to blame him as much as I'm going to blame Sam Alito, who I think is nothing if not brilliant. But Sam Alito comes from the Antonin Scalia mold. And if you'll let me geek out here for a minute, okay, Timmy, just for the average listener, the 12 that are listening. Antonin Scalia used to say the Constitution is dead. It's dead, dead, dead. Basically saying whatever the words say is what the law is. We don't take legislative intent. So a lot of jurists will say, hey, what was the legislature, even though the words came out that it's, 5 is the answer, they were discussing whether 4 or 6 could be a possibility. You know what I'm saying? They would look at the debate, so to speak. Originalists, or what they call textualists, or some people call them strict constructionists, are people who basically say, this is what the law says. It's pretty clear. Okay? Right? The last thing they do is look at legislative intent. I'm going to read you the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause. You ready? Verbatim. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction are citizens of the United States and the state where they reside. Seems pretty clear in the text, doesn't it, Tim?
It does.
Sam Alito, who fashions himself as a strict constructionist in the, Scalia mold, dissents from the argument about naturalized citizenship, saying we should look at legislative intent when this was written. I think my head almost exploded, because how do you get up in the morning knowing you're that full of shit? It's bad enough that the man flies a flag upside down. That, to me, disqualifies him from serving on the Supreme Court. But when you openly just basically contradict everything that you're supposed to stand for, I have to ask sometimes, how do you look at yourself in the mirror? So Sam Alito, to me, is undeniably my whack job of the week this week. The 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause is pretty clear. There's no question what it says. It says, if you're born here, you're a citizen.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop.
Yeah.
Whack job of the week.
I agree.
And again, the Second Amendment, it says a well-regulated militia. Again, if you're a true textualist, a true constructionist, that seems to me that they're saying you can own a gun if you're in a militia. Now, there's different interpretations, but I suppose I should accept this, that what most people do, they're politicians in black robes. But I think at least some people like Amy Coney Barrett, even Neil Gorsuch, people that I may not philosophically agree with, I think they try to do the best. And in fact, Ramesh wrote an article about Amy Coney Barrett in this week's Washington Post. I'll link it, talking about how she's a fair-minded conservative. Give her a break, right?
Yeah.
I think she's doing the best she can with what she has. I think Sam Alito is just a hack. That's it. So.
Yeah, what's funny, Bulleaf pointed out to me that, you remember that World Cup controversy where Trump stuck his
Oh, God, that was the other one. I mean, not that FIFA is exactly a moral a moral thing, but the president calls up the head of FIFA and he reverses his decision. This is a $10 billion enterprise.
So John, this player for the United States was here because his mother was pregnant when she arrived in New York and wasn't allowed to fly back because they didn't think she was safe.
She was in the third trimester.
Yeah. Right? So he was born here as basically falling under the 14th Amendment. And Trump, tries to get him to play soccer for the U.S. It's ironic.
Well, do you remember the movie Liar Liar?
Yeah,
with Jim Carrey.
That was a great one.
He says objection. And he says on the grounds of what or something, and he says it's devastating to my case. And I think that's Trump. Why are you doing this? Because it's good for me. There's no. FIFA's another example. I mean, I suppose I know that they're openly corrupt,
right?
And maybe that's just. This is good because at least they just did it on the up and up. Like, he calls up the president of FIFA and suddenly, for the first time in 60 plus years, a guy with a red card is allowed to play. First time in 60 years. Just, you guys are so slimy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, hey, by the way, speaking of death of institutions.
Yeah.
You know what really hurt my heart this week more than anything?
What's that?
The demise of the stick shift. They think that it's almost officially done in the United States. It's down to like 23% in Europe. Cars are just so good now and automatic transmissions that, there was a hope that people would want them to come back and they would have a certain level of nostalgia. I will always prefer driving a stick shift versus an automatic. I haven't had a stick shift probably in 20 years.
We have one, John.
I know.
Yeah.
There's another death of an institution.
Yeah.
The stick shift.
The
right?
stick shift. There's places you can get a T-shirt that says "Save the Manuals."
That's awesome.
So my hero, you guys might have intuited from earlier on, is J.K. Rowling. So she's a woman with a great story herself, kind of working her way up. She was on welfare, etc. Became this mega rich, popular author, and then more lately is speaking out, speaking up, not being silenced. I think generally doing it respectfully but challengingly, and using humor and her power of language as well as her pockets to kind of hold to something that she values. And I think looking out for what she thinks are biological women's rights, and I respect her a lot for that. And so she's my hero this week.
That's a good one. You like her.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think she's pretty commonsensical. Just because you don't agree with her doesn't make her evil.
Right.
It's like Bret Stephens. Just because Trump's bad, it's not Hitler.
Yeah.
I think there's certainly an element of truth to that, don't you?
Yeah. So.
Well, Timmy, if all the things that we talked about, I still have hope. So So
Hope is a good thing.
And say hello to your folks. You're about to sign off and go say hello to mom and dad. Say hello to your folks. Let them know I said hello. Oh, did Peter finish the jerky yet? Did you guys finish it?
We finished. It was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. That was a good batch.
Fast.
That was a good batch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it out the next day for you.
Yeah.
So that was good. Good. Well, anyway, this is John Boland signing off saying, hey, misbehave, drive fast, take chances.
And this is Tim saying, if everybody likes what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. Let's keep talking.